I'd always dreamed of living in a cozy downtown apartment, close to the buzz of city life, but with a touch of charm. After years of scraping by, I landed a job as a project coordinator at a tech startup and finally moved into a sleek, modern complex in the heart of the city. The building had everything: a gym, a rooftop lounge, and, most crucially, a gated parking garage with one assigned spot per tenant. My spot, number 47, was conveniently near the elevator, a small victory for someone who'd spent years circling for street parking. The lease was crystal clear. Each tenant's spot was private, non-transferable, and strictly enforced by the building's management company. I double-checked this during the walkthrough, as parking in this city was a blood sport. The agent confirmed the rules, and I signed the lease in late August, thrilled to have my own space. Trouble brewed within my first week. I came home late one evening, arms full of groceries, only to find a shiny red SUV parked in spot 47. I double-checked the number, thinking I'd misread, but there it was, bold as brass, squatting in my space. Annoyed but assuming it was a mistake, I left a polite note under the windshield wiper, asking the driver to respect assigned spots. The next morning, the SUV was gone, and I parked without issue, figuring it was a one-off. But 2 days later, it was back. This time, I noticed a pattern. The SUV appeared mostly on weeknights, always late. I left another note, firmer but still civil, and contacted the building manager, Lisa, who promised to look into it. She emailed all tenants, reminding them of the parking rules, but the SUV returned the next night. Frustrated, I started asking around. A neighbor, Tom, tipped me off. The SUV belonged to Greg, a flashy guy in his 30s who lived on the top floor and ran a consulting business that seemed to involve a lot of loud phone calls and late-night visitors. Tom said Greg had a reputation for acting like the building's rules didn't apply to him, often parking in other people's spots because his own, number 82, was at the far end of the garage. Apparently, Greg thought proximity to the elevator was his birthright. I decided to confront him directly. I knocked on his door one evening, and he answered, all charm and slick smiles, claiming it was an honest mistake. He promised it wouldn't happen again. Spoiler, it did, the very next night. Now I was livid. This wasn't just inconveniency, it was a power play. I reported it to Lisa again, who said she'd issue Greg a formal warning, but she seemed hesitant, muttering something about Greg being well-connected with the management company's board. The warnings did nothing. By mid-September, Greg's SUV was in my spot 3 times a week, sometimes with a crumpled version of my note tossed on the ground. Then, I found a note from Greg taped to my car. Chill out. It's just parking. We share around here. Share? The audacity sent my blood boiling. This wasn't a community garden. It was my leased property. I decided to dig deeper. I checked the building's bylaws and my lease, confirming that parking violations could result in fines, towing, or even lease termination for repeat offenders. I also noticed a clause about security cameras in the garage, so I requested footage from Lisa. She dragged her feet, but after persistent emails, she sent me grainy clips showing Greg's SUV pulling into my spot multiple times, often with him smirking as he glanced at my car parked temporarily in a guest spot. Armed with this, I contacted a friend, Mia, who worked as a paralegal. She suggested I build a case, document every violation, send certified letters to management, and prepare for escalation. She also hinted that Greg's connections might not hold up if I pushed hard enough. For 2 weeks, I turned into a detective. I photographed Greg's SUV in my spot, time-stamped every incident, and logged dates and times in a spreadsheet. I sent Lisa a certified letter detailing the violations, attaching photos, and citing the lease. No response. Meanwhile, Greg upped the ante. One night, I found my car's side mirror bent. No note, no apology. The cameras caught Greg's SUV parked sloppily, clipping my mirror as he pulled in. That was the last straw. Mia connected me with a lawyer, Ethan, who specialized in tenant disputes. Ethan reviewed my evidence photos, footage, the lease, and my unanswered letters and said we had a slam-dunk case for breach of contract and property damage. He advised a bold move, demand towing and compensation, and if management refused, threaten legal action against both Greg and the company for enabling him. I sent a final letter to Lisa, copying the management company's board, demanding immediate action, tow Greg's SUV, compensate me for the mirror, and enforce the lease. I included Ethan's contact info for good measure. Within 24 hours, Lisa called, flustered, promising to handle it. The next night, I watched from my balcony as a tow truck hauled Greg's SUV away. He stormed into the garage, yelling at the driver, but it was too late. The building issued Greg a $500 fine and a final warning. My mirror was repaired, paid for by management, who also installed clearer signage for all parking spots. But Greg didn't learn. A week later, his SUV was back in spot 47. This time, I didn't hesitate. I called the tow company myself, as the lease allowed, and watched Greg's car vanish again. He banged on my door that night, red-faced, accusing me of overreacting. I stayed calm, recording the exchange on my phone, and told him to take it up with management. Ethan filed a formal complaint the next day, alleging harassment and ongoing lease violations. The management company, now spooked by the threat of a lawsuit, cracked down. Greg received a 30-day notice to vacate for repeated violations. Rumors swirled that his connections were just blustered name-dropped a board member who barely knew him. By November, Greg was gone, his apartment relist. The new tenant, a quiet nurse, parked in spot 82 without issue. My spot 47 remained mine, and the garage felt peaceful for the first time. Word spread among tenants, and I got nods of respect in the elevator. Ethan later told me the management company revised their enforcement policies, citing my case as a wake-up call. I still park in spot 47, savoring the small victory every time I pull in. Greg's arrogance and the management's inaction had pushed me to fight, and I'd won by playing smarter, not louder. Sometimes, standing your ground with a paper trail and a cool head is the best way to shut down a bully.